Welcome to another episode of the Grow Your Occupancy Podcast. I'm Julie Podewitz, and today I'm joined by Tiffany Cobern. Tiffany is the president of Paragon Senior Living. Welcome, Tiffany.
Thank you, Julie. Thanks for having me on Grow.
I'm thrilled, and like I was saying, for those of you listening, it's close to Valentine's Day. If you're watching, you'll see Tiffany is quite festive. The Valentine hearts on. I love it. I love it. I love it. One of the fun things, many fun things about doing what we do, about working in the communities, even more importantly, is having fun, and being able to do those extra celebrate, or you can celebrate every day, right? But I can imagine residents love your sweater.
I do love it. I would say that, Julie, I've worked in all different types of roles and positions throughout my career, just like many of us in this industry have. And one of the reasons that I came to Paragon, wanted to start Paragon was I was working at a development firm, which was an awesome group of people, and I really enjoyed it. But I was there for 7 years, a little over 7 years, and I really missed the day-to-day connections. I just was so missing operations and being in front of residents and associates and being part of that wonderful community vibe and all of those things that come along with it. So back to the sweater reference, it is really the little things that make a difference in the way that you form the right kind of interactions and interpersonal connections. And so I'm safely back in my element now, I would say.
Oh, I love it. Tell us more about that element. Tell us about Paragon Senior Living.
Yeah, Paragon Senior Living was formed just a year ago. So we are one of the newer groups in the senior living space right now. And I'm so excited to be part of a ground up build again. I say again because I've been able to start up two other management companies in my career, and this is my third, and it's not my baby. It's we have a capital partner behind it, but Paragon, I was able to participate in the naming of Paragon Senior Living, and one of the reasons that we named it Paragon was because of what Paragon. It's an old Italian French word known as paragone, and basically what it symbolizes, or the meaning of that word, traditionally is a touchstone that was used millennia ago to test the quality of gold. And so when you think about a touchstone in general, anything high touch in our industry is always really front and center, right? That's what we do. And in a touchstone used specifically to test the quality of gold, I mean, that's a symbol of excellence. It's a symbol of it's supreme merit. And so when you look up, the history of the word paragon, and we were reading through that, and we were kind of assimilating how much relevance that has to what we do and who we serve. It perfectly encapsulates the essence of aging, right? The supreme merit, and they're refined over time, and each life is really a remarkable tapestry that just gets more beautiful, through the years, and just like a river rock or a paragon stone. So we knew then that was how we wanted to start telling our story, and how we wanted to grow our company going forward, is because the foundational elements of how we develop out our awareness is really solid and relevant to our space.
And you are based where?
We are based in Florida.
Okay.
And one of the reasons, that's a great question. One of the reasons that we decided to base in Florida initially is because there was our very first senior living community that we manage now, which was closed in April of last year, is the Village at Gainesville in Gainesville, Florida. And it's a wonderful property. It's been around for a long time. It's a 104 acre campus with 13 different buildings on it, with primarily independent living, but also 3 different buildings of assisted living, memory support. And so that's Paragon's first community under management. And so we are actually based here at the Village at Gainesville.
I love it. Our daughter just graduated Tallahassee.
Ah,
She's a Golden
Seminole.
State Scout. Yeah, yeah. Um, Go Knowles, but we love U of F,
Yeah,
U
yeah.
as well, Gainesville. I was going to ask you your biggest win. I still feel like it's the beginning of the year, even though we're halfway through February. I've been asking people their biggest wins at 25. You've had many, and we're probably getting through that first year, right? Is Paragon is a huge win. Anything else really stand out to you?
Yeah, that's such a great point, Julie. I think when I was considering that question initially, I was thinking, man, I think my biggest win in 2025 was I woke up on January 1st of 2026 and was realized I had all my parts intact because it really was this whirlwind year. But when I look back on it, definitely a few key things came to mind as huge wins for Paragon. One was really just building trust and relationship with our first community. It's a 639 unit village, and so it's almost like four the equivalent of four senior living communities at one time. And because of the complexities of the operation and all of the different things involved, I think a huge win for us was assimilating into that environment so that they could see us as we are you. We are the same people that are in this industry because we care about seniors. We are advocates for for the cause of seniors, and to expand consumer knowledge about how important it is that senior living destinations are considered first when you think about improving quality of life for our nation's aging population. And so, for a huge win for Paragon was the fact that when we started, we didn't just go rent office space somewhere and form connections with our first community from afar and the occasional site visit. We actually placed our corporate office at the Village at Gainesville and spent so many months just learning their operation and paying attention to what our residents were telling us, and embedding ourselves into the local market. And I think that was our huge win, because now going into 2026, all of the operational behind the scenes necessities, like your operating budget for the next year and all the time it takes to create that, and the passing along rent increases and some of the things that are necessary but sometimes complex, we were able to do those with almost no pushback, and amidst change and amidst asking residents to give us some time to prove that we're a good group. I think that we were positioned excellently now in 2026 to grow and acquire additional senior living communities because of how much time we spent on the ground in year one.
It sounds to me like building that you really took time to, I mean, you're literally there. It's like four communities really, and the 650 unit, I mean, massive, massive campus, right? I mean, this is it's like a mini city, a small city even, but really taking the time to build relationships. And very much as you were talking, Tiffany, I was thinking, does this translate exactly to how the sales process, the system, the approach is very prospect
Yes.
focused. People see and hear. We don't just kind of, hey, we're here and here's our services and you better do this and kind of
Yeah.
jamming it down someone's throat. We're first see and hear, lean in with curiosity. Like we want to see and hear and learn, and that then builds the connection, builds a relationship, builds the trust. And then those conversations or facts, factual things like how much something costs, or a rate, or a change, or a human error. We all make them, right? Uh, I made a real whoopsie on Monday, and I needed to call a client, and it was totally me, totally my fault. And she couldn't have been more gracious about it. And first of all, she's a gracious person, but we have a good relationship, right? And it's like that. I think most people will, once you build the relationship and the trust, it opens the door to having those. It's a rate increase.
Yes.
Nobody likes a rate increase. Nobody likes someone else making a huge mistake. But
Yeah.
these things are life. So it sounds to me like you've set a really strong foundation, right? And now, like you mentioned, 2026, you're looking to grow. I was going to ask you kind of what you're looking forward to or focusing into this year and beyond.
It's really growth related, as you would imagine. Any startup business, regardless of the industry that it's in, is always going to be thinking of growth every single day until you get to some scale where you can then begin to measure how is my business plan being effectuated, right? So that's exactly what our 2026 is looking like for Paragon. Is we're spending a lot of time, and we were even in 2025 too, shoring up resources and building relationships in the marketplace and creating alignment with planned industry partners and looking for, a growth strategy that made sense geographically. And so what we hope to be able to do in 2026 is effectuate our growth plan for year two, which is establish a multi-site presence in the Southeast. So mainly Florida, but surrounding states is fine. And also up in the mid-Atlantic states as well. So those are our two first geographic regions of growth that we hope to grow in 2026. And then additionally, future years would include high senior living touch markets like Texas and some of the geographic areas where I have extensive experience. Like I moved here from Dallas. I've been in Texas my entire life residentially. Have extensive experience there and in surrounding states, as well as Midwest and all kinds of stuff. So, we'll be taking on additional complexities as we go, but to walk before we run, we are looking at some measured growth in Florida and in the Mid-Atlantic.
That sounds great. So sales we can't grow without revenue, and we need that. We're all about the sales and the revenue, and obviously doing the right thing, and being prudent with there because it's residents first. In building a business, we got to have revenue. So let's talk sales. At the community level first, uh, what are you? What do you think? I have so many questions as you look at sales directors, counselors at the site level, what do you feel real or no makes a difference? Like, what are you doing at Paragon? You're like, yeah, this
Yeah.
is, yeah, moving the
Um,
needle. What's a non-negotiable for you?
yes, that's such a great question. Non-negotiables, when you think about non-negotiables from a selling standpoint, you look at your industry and your product or service that you're selling first, and then back out of it from there. And because we are in such a high touch industry, our non-negotiable is authentic selling. I mean, it is absolutely critical, and it does make the difference in how your consumer or your prospect or their families form their first impressions. Is, do you come across as authentic and relatable? Do you understand our journey? And can you relate to what we're going through, even if you have other things on your mind that you've got to get to next, or you've got a specific approach in mind for us based on what we told you, the limited amount we may have told you on the phone. You haven't already come up with some preconceived notions of who I am or who my mom might be, right? So that is really all what Paragon stands for, again, with just this high touch, refined with time, supreme excellent merit, the essence of aging, and really graceful support is just the authenticity of our sales touch points, whether it's the interaction with our sales director or their counselors, or the interaction with our executive directors, the interaction with any team members that they come across is the difference maker in the way that consumers make their buying decision. And then the other part is I can't underscore enough, as I've just been in this industry for so many years, for 30 years, is the best senior living operations, inclusive of the sales methodology, are the ones who have spent intentional time forming local market relationships to strategically align ongoing referrals because the market knows them very well. They know what they stand for and they back them. And so if you're not spending time on the front end, just really creating alignment with targeted, high impact partners that you can create some reciprocity with from a benefit standpoint, then you're missing a huge part of how your consumer connects the dots from what they experience in the consumer marketplace there in that market and the decision to move into this place is really should be a unilateral experience for them. So those two things I would say are non-negotiables for us.
What is your or Paragon's kind of requirement? So what I'm hearing you loud and clear is outreach, outreach, outreach. External business development, critical. That's a song I absolutely would sing with you. And being authentic, agree.
Mm.
Do you have specific requirements or what do you see work? There's, Tiffany, a lot of challenge, generally speaking, for multiple reasons
Yep.
around this executing on local business development.
Well, I think that's a great point you bring up, Julie, because there's a difference in how our industry traditionally thinks of outreach and what I'm referring to. And the way that we traditionally think of outreach is you hire a business development person and they spend all their time out hitting up the hospitals and the discharge planners and the home health agencies and local nursing homes that have a good track record that you could partner with. And I'm not saying none of those things are meaningful because they are, but what I'm referring to is how are we from a business and not just, relying upon someone on your sales team to run point on this, but how are we as a business operation establishing ourselves as a recognized and credible component of the community, of the surrounding community, in the eyes of influencers in that community, business leaders, the chamber, universities, speaking of, the location that we're in Gainesville, Florida, university systems, hospital systems. How are we doing the time on the front side, with our footwork and getting to know these influencers well and figuring out mutually beneficial ways to work together. And then where it makes sense, maybe even creating a preferred referral partnership, where there's an actual program behind it. That's fine too. But really, the fact is that the more you have people advocating for you messaging wise in the marketplace, they do those things. They advocate for you when you are getting your executive director involved in that process. When I'm involved as a president of a management company, when I'm involved in that process, that's when they start to connect the dots and say, these people are invested in this community. Then the fact that you may or may not have an outreach person on your sales team that goes and visits these people from time to time, that's just sort of a supplementary reinforcement of that relationship. It's not the thing that creates the action, in my opinion, in my experience.
You're talking about in a very even higher level. So executive directors, managers, or operations, you as the president, you're getting out locally. So you're talking about business development, relationship development from president on through.
Yeah. Yes.
And so you have your executive director go out and do. You have one executive director for this massive campus. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
but
and then you have some others that.
Yeah, there's others. There's additional positions that you don't normally see in smaller properties that help support operations. But yes, that's what I'm suggesting. And really, that belief came from my experience on the development side and on the, opening new communities and new markets side of things. We even got involved 1 to 2 years before we would open a new community in a new market, doing those things because of the fact
Yeah.
that if you can identify alignment before the community opens, they'll help you pre-lease. They'll help you,
Hmm.
they'll help you on the messaging side early. And those partnerships are incredibly important for senior living credibility to the consumer. So those to me are the difference makers. And none of those are secrets. It's just that it's not often um, intentional, done intentionally. And so I think that's the difference for us. And then, I know, to your other point about how you manifest that in the sales department specifically, I mean, when you think about who we choose as our sales leaders to sort of echo, like they can become then an echo chamber for that previously larger umbrella strategy, and not be expected as a sales director to be the only banner waiver for that initiative. Is when we think about who we hire into a sales director position, it's not just someone who knows how to use the CRM or someone who understands how to bring up analytics on their computer and give you the relevant data to their performance, their department's performance. I mean, that's a basic, you know, and most people are really good at that anyway when you look at people that we hire in our industry. But it's just they need to really understand the business. Like they need to understand the big picture business of why we do what we do. Because if they can understand that, then the way they approach sales, especially if they have a team that reports to them, then they can put more substance behind the direction they provide to their department. Is they understand the business. They're coming, if they have to have a tough conversation, or if they have to get creative about how to hit a certain move-in target, or if they need to retool a business strategy because the components aren't working, then we always see better results if the sales director is a business-minded professional who understands how the revenue fits into the net operating income and what drives margin, and the types of business strategies that as a management company that we're accountable to our owners for each month and each quarter. If they understand that, then you're going to see a lot more alignment between the sales director and the executive director, as well as the company itself. And then, the personal commitment to staying on top of technology is the other thing that we see nowadays more than anything else, is not just hiring executive directors who are technology savvy, but making sure our sales directors are really forward thinking tech people who know how to put together a presentation if they need to use AI for assistance in coming up with some more solidified talking points, or a way to check their own narrative about how they would answer questions to a prospect. And the cool thing about technology, Julie, as you well know, is our space in senior living is finally catching up to other asset classes, really. And it's exciting to be a part of that, because you have a lot of tech interfaces on the sales side now in our space that do a good job with AI interface. And to not take advantage of that is kind of a miss. You're going to get left behind.
Great. So many great points. Executive directors being really sales focused, revenue focused. To your really back to your point, is business
Yeah.
minded, business folks are running a big business. Yet we're still, I think, behind the curve as a business, as an industry, looking at the ED role and who we're selecting and helping and coaching up. Uh,
Yeah.
we're not quite, and no disrespect. I mean, it's a very, very difficult job. There's so many components, but the same thing in the sales arena, where there's so much tech, tactile doing of the
Mhm.
job necessary, and you can't just be a strategist and sit back and have all great ideas all the time. You got to do the work, but
Yeah.
really shifting or combining, helping, supporting to go from that tactician, right, to the more strategic
Yeah.
mindset. Like what it was not just, oh, someone's making me do this, or I don't
Right.
have time. I don't have time. I don't have time to go to the chamber. I got, I got a schedule to do, right? It's not my job. I mean, I'm not a people. I don't do sales. I'm not that's not my job kind of thing as ED, and it couldn't be farther from the truth. Is like
Well,
you said, and
that's right. I mean, I was actually referring to the sales director having command of the business model earlier, not the executive director, because I'm assuming the ED, that's the whole reason they're there, is really just to understand how to take a high touch, care related, highly important. You're taking care of one of our most treasured national resources, which is our nation's aging population, and you're making a successful business on the side. But for the sales director to
yeah, both.
actually
Yeah.
understand the
Oh yeah.
business model, yeah, that's
Yeah.
I think it's a gap. I think there's still a big gap, Julie, in the way that sales directors are expected to do their jobs in senior living. Is they're expected to be good at the mechanics of the sale, which obviously, like I mentioned earlier, is a non-negotiable thing. But they're not always screened for their understanding of how what they do, and the sales portion of driving revenue and ultimately NOI is part of the bigger operation, and why every department is a sales department. Every department, dining services and our resident engagement programs and our wellness team and our housekeeping, and all of those departments are sales. And so how can they feel like they're keeping everything that informs a sales plan in the context of the bigger picture of, if we're truly a high touch industry and we want our prospects and their families to genuinely feel that when they evaluate one of our communities as a potential option for them to live in, their loved one to live in, how do we pull off this orchestrated, this is just part of our culture and what we do for all of our team members and all of our customers, is we make sure they understand that we're sure we have programs, and sure we have goals to meet, and we have to be accountable financially to multiple types of people, but we also really focus every department of our operations on pleasing the customer, on meeting the expectation of our customers and our residents and their families. And that's because we treasure, number one, it's a blessing and a privilege for us to have them, it's just to serve them. But number two is we want to make sure they feel like there's no sort of honeymoon period where we're all really engaged with them and making sure everything's great in their apartment, and that they're getting the checks they need. And then all of a sudden it kind of just falls off and they become a number. Like, that's not ever going to be an option. And so if every department knows their role in the sales process, when things become monotonous, and on a Wednesday versus a Saturday, and on the third shift when nobody really pays attention to that, and like all of those circumstances that happen everywhere in senior living in thousands of communities across the country, we have to remember that every department understands their role in becoming a sales oriented culture. That's a big concept, and it's really
Yeah.
complex, and it's a big undertaking. So no one's ever going to have it perfected, right, Julie? But we want to be focused on it. We want to ask the tough questions and re-examine what we think our own best practices are on a regular basis, so that we make it easier for our sales director and our sales team to do their job that way. They have so many great case studies to talk about and great stories. And when we give them the ones that really happen in our communities, then they can really be authentic that way. It kind of comes full circle now. I'm really authentic because I just told you 3 relevant stories to your mom's very experiences, or what maybe she's not getting at home, of what just I saw with my own eyes that happened 2 days ago. So I want to make sure that as we build relationships with our communities that we acquire over time, that they understand that we're not really expecting you to be a rocket scientist or discover something new. We're expecting you to recognize that our industry has always been and will continue to be high touch, and everything we do when we tell our story is going to be based off high touch successes.
I wrote a note when you were talking, Tiffany Cobern part two.
Yeah, we were out of
Wait
time.
for it in 2026 because the
Yeah.
next discussion, we're going to dive more deeply into every department, right? And is a sales department, and
Yes.
specifically, actually, in my mind, if you will come back, I definitely want to dive into this because it is everybody is in sales, and what does that really mean specifically for, and maybe examples for each kind of department. That is a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Um, and hopefully, thank you all very much for listening. And hopefully, you'll definitely join us again to hear that topic. But Tiffany, thank you so much for joining us. It's just such a pleasure learning from you, talking with you today. And I wish you all the success. I'm really, really happy for you, for the Paragon Senior Living
Thank you.
team and all of your residents. I can tell, I think everyone else certainly listening can, the passion, the love that you have for who you serve. And that
Absolutely.
just comes right through. And we all thank you. And I'm sure everyone that works at Paragon thinks the same. And thank you all for listening to another episode of the Grow Your Occupancy Podcast, and for everything you all do in your space, in your way, to support ultimately the older adults and the families that you all serve. Like, share, subscribe so other people can learn from people, professionals, and wonderful people like Tiffany. And we will talk soon. Tiffany, are you going to the conference? There's a Seniors Housing News Sales Conference in Orlando coming up.
Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to make it. I'm so
Oh,
sorry
I
I
was going to
missed you
say.
guys. Yes.
It's you. You're right. So kind of right there. So
I am
yes,
close.
March. Yeah, you are close. All right, next time. So we definitely will be there at Grow. I believe it's the first weekend of March, March 5th, I
Mm.
think. Yeah, in Orlando. So if you're going, we'll see you there. And again, Tiffany, thank you so much for spending some time with me today.
Thank you, Julie. Till next time.
Absolutely.